copy of this? Okay, you can have it. I already read it.
2 o'clock.
I'll go down there. I will.
All right, it's 2 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Chief Thornton,
Here.
Chief Allen,
Here.
Brandy Davis,
Here.
Lillian Pike,
Here.
Dee Dee Hayes, here, Battalion Chief England.
Here.
All right, I need a motion to find the items on today's ARB agenda are essential to the city business or COVID related. Can I get a motion for that?
I'll make a motion.
Got a motion with Brandy, second.
Second.
Chief Allen, seconds. Roll call, please.
Chief Allen,
Aye.
Brandy Davis,
Aye.
Lillian Pike,
Aye.
Dee Dee Hayes.
Aye.
All right, we need to do the approval of the July 2021 minutes. We don't have any minutes for the August meeting. That meeting was canceled, so everybody has should have a copy of the July 2021 minutes. If there's any questions? Can I get a motion to accept those as read?
So moved.
Chief Allen made a motion. Have a second.
I'll second.
And Ms. Davis seconds. Roll call, please.
Chief Allen,
Aye.
Brandy Davis,
Aye.
Lillian Pike,
Aye.
Dee Dee Hayes.
Aye.
All right. Under old business, Mr. Alexander, could you go over the changes that council did with the ordinance?
Sure. For the most part, the recommendations that the ARB made were carried through by the council. If I counted right going back through, there were 3 things that y'all had recommended that they adjusted. And there was 2 of the ordinances themselves were tweaked to cover these 3 things. One is that the audited financial statements were changed to a third-party reviewed financial statement. The year requirement on the ambulances was taken out. The mileage that you recommended was still in place, but the years since it was new was taken out. And you recommended when the times moved to 9 and 13, that the possibility for time exceptions was removed, and they put the ability to apply for time exceptions back in. So those 3 changes were made, and then the rest of your recommendations were approved.
Next on the agenda, Chief England, could you go over the mileage on first response trucks?
Yes, sir. Like Mr. Alexander just said, the city council did approve the change to be 250,000 miles on the trucks. Currently, only 2 trucks in first response meets that current mileage. According to first response's 5-year plan, they were supposed to have 3 trucks by September of 2021. So it'd be up to them to determine where they're at with the truck purchases or things like that.
Mr. Childers or Mr. Tyndall, how many trucks do you have in that mileage that meets that requirement?
First of all, before we make any comment, we would like to object to this meeting. Prior 7-day notice for the meeting, on the agenda posted. We're going to talk, we'll gladly talk, but we do not consider this a valid meeting.
All right.
Under the OMA Act.
So does that mean you're not gonna answer the questions?
No, sir, I'll be happy to answer, I'll be happy to answer the question. I'm just saying that this is.
We met all the criteria.
I sent it out yesterday.
Well, and the ordinance the ordinance set the meeting, so.
The ordinance can't supersede the Open Meetings Act that's stated by the state of Alabama. And yes, Chief, I'll answer anything you want.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying that it wasn't published 7 days prior to business days, and the agenda wasn't posted 7 days did not meet the.
We met the requirements. You're fine to go forward with the meeting.
Okay.
So do you have any trucks that's less than 250,000 miles on them?
We have two, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And three others are coming across the border. They're in customs right now.
Do you have an estimate time when they will arrive here?
Somewhere between 40 and 60 days, depending on the clearances that they receive.
Okay. The question that I have on the mileage, and this may be more to Chip about it. If the ambulance service replaces the engine that has 300,000 miles on it and it's a brand new engine, does that constitute a brand new truck? Does that constitute? It don't constitute nothing, because the major reason you have a truck is for the engine. The engine breaks down. So
Right, that was discussed, but remount,
It was discussed, and if they remount the box of their trucks onto a new chassis and new motor, transmission, drivetrain, then that would be acceptable. Whether they just take the engine out and put a new engine in, the question is that what raises concern on that is the drivetrain, the transmission, the drive shaft, the axles and all that. All that will still have 250,000 miles on it. The only thing that would be new on that truck would be the engine.
okay. So you're saying they have to put the frame, the chassis up of I guess on a new frame?
Yeah, it's actually,
The
they'll
box.
take the box of the ambulance, pick it up, slide a new truck, set it back down.
Okay.
The boxes are made to be remounted like that, or some of them are.
So,
Okay.
And Chief, we do have trucks that have new engines and transmissions placed in them. We do have two trucks. Well, including newer is always better, right? But even our two new trucks, we replace both engines in both of those trucks right at 100,000 miles, as well as transmission. But in addition to those two trucks, we have a few more trucks in our fleet that have had the new Jasper transmissions and the engines installed in those.
Okay, and they get no credit for engines and transmissions? Okay.
All right. Is there any other old business? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to new business.
okay, okay.
Chief England, you want to talk about the next three items, or four items?
Mr. Chairman, if you're going to speak from the audience, then you can come to the microphone, because we cannot hear you
Yes, sir.
via YouTube, okay?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that.
I was getting up there.
Not fast enough.
Good chance,
I think you got in trouble.
Get all up on me, wouldn't it? So, we have asked, first response several times. On your agenda, you'll see that we asked for a number of medic units for June. We've asked them several times to give us, excuse me, the number of units they're running daily. What that does, that helps when we look at roll calls and transfers and things like that. It gives us a kind of an idea of what they're running, the number of units they're running. They've refused to give us the accurate number that they run. So, as far as the next, anybody got any questions about that one?
I have a question. If you don't mind, actually, would you repeat?
He needs to come to the mic.
Hey, come, yeah, will you come to the mic, please?
We're gonna get another mic.
All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I was just wondering, and I didn't catch that, what he said we refused to give him, that's what I was wondering.
He had asked for the number of,
Medic units.
medic units for the month of June that you had on duty each day.
Okay. I believe he did ask for the number of medic units, but it was never posed to each day. Not that I can remember. I do remember there being an email asking about the number of medic units, and I also could not find that in the ordinances as well.
Couldn't find what in the ordinance.
where we have to supply the number of medic units we run each day.
I don't think the ordinance covers everything that, that's asked. I think it's more of just a courtesy. We could find out
Yes,
how
sir.
many medic units you had. We just ask, for you to supply that information to us. And the actual reply we got from Mr. Childers were that he didn't feel that it was, something that he needed to discuss, that he would send it to his lawyers, and if his lawyers felt it was something that needed to be
I
addressed,
understand.
they would reply back to us about
Okay,
it.
no
So
problem.
that's kind of where we're
That's
at on
fine.
that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, next item is complaint 2021-9.
Yes, sir. Mr. Tyndall submitted a complaint on, let's see that date now. On July 26th. The complaint was that on July 25th, one of his medic units was at Decatur General ER for 41 minutes. At that time, he states if the truck was not at the ER for an extended period of time, he would not have to have had rolled a call to the service. After reviewing the time reports for both calls, it was determined that when the call that was taken by the unit that it was rolled to was at, go to the last page. That truck was dispatched at 10:52. First response unit was on scene from 10:46 to 10:59. So that truck was still on scene when the call was rolled. So that unit had no bearing on being at the hospital. Oops, there you are.
Okay, on the complaint he's speaking of, 2021-9, I made a mistake on that call. It should not have been filed. I looked at the times wrong. That was a mistake on my part.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the next one, 2021-10, that's a complaint that, I guess you could say Decatur Fire has asked Mr. Childers and Mr. David to look into. It's a issue of patient care. We sent that to them. We had a little bit of a delay getting a complaint form from one of our crew members due to him and his wife having a baby. But that has been sent to them for them to review. Prior to the complaint form being sent, I've sent several emails to Mr. Tyndall and Mr. Childers about having to sit down and discuss this, and they said they didn't want to do that. They wanted to do a complaint form, so they had the complaint form.
So they got that now?
Yes.
And we'll discuss that later. All right.
You want to come up here?
I never want to come up there.
Okay. Well, just hang tight then.
All right, the next one is the overturn.
The next one would be, we had three of our crew members submit emails to me about an overturned stretcher with the patient on board. I contacted Mr. Childers about that, and then I sent emails, and then right now, I have not received any information from Mr. Childers concerning this incident.
Would you like to,
Mr. Childers was handling this. I'm not aware of it.
would you like to come talk?
Come on back, Norm.
Good evening. On this particular complaint that Mr. England's speaking of, I queried all the crew members.
Can't hear you, this is YouTube. You're not speaking to the mic closer.
I spoke to the crew members that was on this day, and I have no instance or accident forms that have been turned into me and no acknowledgement that there was a stretcher issue on that day. The only stretcher issue,
Are you saying you don't have one from your crew, or you hadn't got it from us yet?
no, I had Mr. England sent
Okay.
that over. And
Okay.
then when I was investigating to find out which crew, what happened, my results was none on that.
Did you talk to your crew?
I spoke with every crew
Did
member.
they have their body cameras on?
I don't know. Nobody admitted to a stretcher fall. The only stretcher incident we had was documented, and that was at Decatur General at a later date, in which we communicated with the family members on that particular event. On the prior, I just had no one that stated that there had been an issue. Thank you.
All right, Chief England, can we check into that some more?
Yes, sir. I'll be more than happy to. I've spoke with, I've got the documentation from all three of our crew members. I've went to the house several times, and the people are either at work or gone. So I will continue looking into that. I think they actually have cameras at their house. So if they do, we should be able to pull that footage and stuff like that. But our crews that night told me that that first response crews did have their body cams on, that they're required to wire on calls. So.
Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda, the new business, is first response fourth quarter 2020 appeal has not been presented to council. Chip, you want to speak on that?
The modifications to the ordinance, through oversight originally, there was not a time restraint on filing an appeal. There was to the ARB and from the ARB to not to the council, but there was a 14-day limit on filing an appeal. We omitted that in the appeal to the council. The ordinance changes recommended by the ARB and passed by the council cover that up. My suggestion would be, so that this is not just hanging in limbo forever, is that it be put on the next agenda to verify or certify that finding, and that would start the 14 days running from that point, so that if it's not appealed within those 14 days, we can see about collecting that.
All right, so what you're saying, we need to wait till next month?
I wouldn't do it now because it would be added after the fact on the agenda.
All right, so we need to wait till next month?
Right.
And then we add?
Which actually gives them 6 weeks to decide whether or not they're gonna appeal it, rather than
Okay.
2.
All right, the next item on new business is the CP&C for Decatur Morgan EMS.
Chief, if I could just briefly, because I guess for a procedural thing, this part of the process is governed by section 3-14, ARB review of application and report to city council. What this procedure, what this discussion is about today is for the results of the investigation to be shared. That would be the investigation from DFR and from DPD. The EMS coordinator can can report his review of the application, and the applicant can speak to the ARB about their application. Then the vote that would be taken is whether the applicant and the application meet the criteria called for by the ordinance. And if the ARB determines that yes, it meets the criteria, then it would go to the council, and at the council level there would be a public hearing. The other provider would have an opportunity to be heard. The public would be able to be heard when the decision on whether the new ambulance service is needed would be discussed at that time in a public hearing. But there's not a provision for 2 separate public hearings. The only people that would be heard from today are the EMS coordinator, the ARB, and the applicant.
All right, Chief England.
Okay, Chief Allen, I apologize. I sent the copy of the CP&C to all the ARB members, and I didn't know you was at that time, so I apologize for that. So Just to give you a little background on this right here, myself and Captain Pinion looked through this, went through the CPNC. He was charged with doing the background checks on that. Since it is a quasi-government, there is no background checks. You do have a letter from him stating that in the form. I emailed it to you also. Decatur Morgan Hospital EMS, Decatur Morgan EMS is a quasi-government. It's backed by Huntsville Hospital Authority. You have letters from their CFO and their chairman of their board. Also in the CPNC, they have a desire to operate 6 trucks while adjusting as need be from daily call volume, not day, hourly, or whatever you have whatever you may have. They will operate 24 hours to begin with, and with the desire to move that from 24 hours to 12-hour shifts for their crews. They have been operating here since 2021, February 2021, when the City Council passed a resolution to authorize them to do the non-emergency transfers between the hospital systems. They have also answered several 911 calls, and as a backup basis, when first response doesn't have a truck and it gets rolled, we feel like it was easier to roll a call to a service that's in the city rather than roll it to a service that's outside the city. It's just a faster, quicker response. With you today in the binding clip forms there is a list of June, July, and August number of calls and what calls Decatur Morgan EMS has responded to. Just a little background of what they have. Currently they have 6 trucks. I've inspected all of them except one, and that was in the shop, in the body shop, getting some paint touched up on it. As far as equipment goes, they have Zoll monitors, stat packs, scoop stretchers, stair chairs on order, easy-O drills, and Lucas device on each truck. I went through it. They'll also have a Striker power load system. I went through it and checked all of them off myself and made sure everything was good and everything was perfect. The only issue I found in the CPNC was when they turned in their list of employees, the ordinance requires them to have 51% of their employees be full-time. At that time, when they submitted the CPNC, I think it was like 47, 48%. I have contacted Carrie and Tyler about that, and I have an email from Carrie saying at this time they're at 50% of their staffing is full-time, and she said they'll be within 51% very shortly after today. Other than that, that's all I've got. I've checked off their trucks personally, and everything's good to go. Like I said, they have been running some calls in the city, 911s and transfers. So I'm going to, Tyler, if y'all have any questions, we have their leadership team here that will be more than happy to answer any questions you may have for them. Do y'all have anything else for me?
I don't.
Y'all have any questions for us?
I do. On here, I know it's been a big issue back and forth with the other agency about mileage on these trucks.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
didn't see that anywhere in here. I did see the years of the trucks, but I didn't see the mileage.
Currently, the highest mileage truck we have has 229,000 miles on it. The next highest mileage is 197, and then the rest of them are all under 15,000.
Is there any other questions from ARB?
You only have 50% of the employees full-time, you're gonna get to one more percentage.
I actually had 2 PR employees in the last couple of days request to go full-time, so that'll actually put us over that 50%, that 51%. We're working on getting them processed now.
You all just have 6 trucks?
Yes, sir, we have some on order also.
How many on order?
We have one that should be here sometime end of this month, 1st of October. Then we have another one that should be here in October, and then one in December. So 3 more.
Jenny, how many trucks do you think we need to run the city 24 hours?
How many trucks,
You need to come to the mic.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer this, but I'll give my opinion from the way that we dispatch calls for the city of Decatur. At no point in time do I foresee them necessarily needing to have 6 trucks on duty, maybe during peak times. And so as long as those 6 trucks stay running and rotate them through, then they should be well with coverage. I think optimal for the city of Decatur would probably be 5 if I had to actually pick a number that they needed to run the majority of the time to make the majority of the calls. Again, this is heavily depending upon call volume, hospital wait times, and the types of transfers and transports that they come in that are regularly. During the week, they should probably maintain a higher volume of trucks on duty because that is when your routine transfers and transports out of places like DCI and the hospitals occur that are routine versus on the weekends. So I would say 5 to 6 trucks on duty at any given time should be an optimal number.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Childers, do you have an answer for that also? You probably come to the mic to get notice about the mic.
Yes, sir, Chief. We operate on a system status management plan, and 5 to 6 units for the complete city of Decatur has worked for us since 2013. There has been some additional times of needing an additional unit when we have to take the calls to the Golden Triangle in Mississippi or to Dothan, Alabama, which is a considerable amount of distance. So on advanced life support trucks, 5 units, in our opinion, total for the city has worked for us. And might I add, in addition to that question, the 5 units, the supporting documentation that we have for the 5 units that we recommend, since we began operations in the city of Decatur, we've compiled the numbers from 911 and all the way through to this year. And there's been some problems with the 911 reporting system, a few little hiccups with the times right now when they swapped over. But I think it's fair to mention that since conception of first response and operating our system status management, we have maintained a 90.08% since the beginning day, and that's 911 numbers. That's not our numbers.
What does that mean?
Fractal response times. Fractal response times, we've maintained a 90.08% fractal. The ordinance called for a 90% per annual. Now, this is taking all the years, putting them together and doing an average like it should be done on the fractals. But it's worth noting that the 5 units that we have operated during that time on the advanced life support has what's garnered that great response time of an average of 90.08 since the conception of first response. Any other questions?
No, sir.
Thank you.
So there's one thing I have wrote down that I'll just skip right over it. If this CPNC is passed, in which I support it, I support the ARB passing this. The way it will be done is all emergency, and I've talked to Ms. Ferris about this also, and we agree. All 911 calls will be based on AVL, which would send the closest truck to the call. There will be some issues that we'll have to work through as far as trucks posting close to each other. We would have to find a nice distance, saying that the trucks can't be but so close to each other. But we feel like using AVL will be the quickest and fastest way to get people to the ambulance they need. As far as non-emergency transfers, it will be a system set up. So if a patient is coming out of the hospital, either Parkway or Decatur, Morgan, the nurse, that patient's nurse will be required to ask the patient or the patient's family which ambulance service they would like to use. And they would have the choice between the 2 ambulance services, and it will be a written document that the patient or patient's family will sign that they choose which ambulance service they want to use. As far as the dialysis clinics, nursing homes, and things like that, whatever those clinics that First Response does not have a contract with currently, then it'll be up to each service to get a contract with that service or that facility and things like that.
And since I believe I'm the only one that was involved in this when Dempsey and first responders were both working, we used the AVL closest at that time too. That's how the decision was made on who got the emergency calls then.
Yeah. You're exactly right. That's where we got that from. We just went back and I remember, that's how it was done. It worked out well. Actually, there's articles from 2012 where the response time went down when we had two services because they was posting their trucks out in different areas. So the response time was quicker.
So will each company have an area of responsibility, or they just get to choose where they want to go?
It's choose where they want to go. I know First Response has an office on Central Parkway. They have an office on 7th Avenue Southeast, is that correct? And then they have an office at Parkway. Currently, Decatur Morgan, of course, they'll have an office at both hospitals. But other than that, it'll be up to each service of where they would like to post trucks at and stage them for possible emergency calls. And with that being said, that's where me and Ms. Ferris have talked. There will be something in place that if one truck's here, the other service can't pull another truck up beside it or within so many.
I was gonna go to that next. You know, since we've had such a big conflict between everybody here in ambulances, what prevent them from parking side by side?
And that's what me and Ms. Ferris, we're gonna look at that and determine whether we need to say you can't park within 2 miles of each other or 3 miles or what. That's just gonna be more on her dispatchers having to watch, oh, there's 2 trucks side by side, but, you know.
But would it be easier to consider just giving them areas of responsibility versus that, as opposed to telling them where they can park and they can't be 2 miles from the other one, and how are they to know they're 2 miles from the other one, and then they call dispatch, and it seemed like a lot more work on dispatch.
If you split the city right in half, and you say, all right, First Response, you have this side, Decatur Morgan, you have this side, if one side's busier than the other side, then they're gonna have.
That's life.
I know, but the
But
way
it's
we
also,
did
you'd have a slower response maybe because,
the way we did it with
if all the
AVL,
trucks are busy
You
on
can't
one
get
side.
no slower than we have now. You got 10 ambulances out there versus 5.
Yeah, actually you could, because if all the ambulances are tied up on one side of the city, then you got ambulances sitting free on the other.
No, you call it the same premise. I'm looking at it from the county. When it's all tied up right now, they call in the county to come in, the county ambulance to come in, which is further away. So the way I'm describing it, you still got 5 sitting on the other side of the street that can come on this side, which is still closer than coming all the way back from Hartselle in the county. So, I mean, I'm just a layman on that. I'm a policeman. I try to stay on police lane, but I'm a manager too.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's simpler to just give them areas of responsibility, because it's very difficult for 911 and dispatchers to police the ambulances and say, you can't be on this street here. And then you got a real problem.
Well,
then they're calling me, so I'm
and
trying to
that's
get a problem
where,
for me.
as managers, as Tyler and Denise and David and Jason, they're gonna have to police their units and say, look, don't do it.
Yeah, but how would they know? How would they know an ambulance is around the block from me? How would I know that if I got an ambulance on Lee Street and I got an ambulance sitting on this side of the building, how would they know?
You can see them on AVL.
If it helps any, when they were doing it before, when they both started working, we had a period of several months where that was going on in the parking lot, and it worked itself. People started spreading to where each group felt they were better positioned to get a call. Now, I don't think 2 to 3 miles in between is feasible, but
I'm sorry. When I said that, I didn't mean
but
that was just
something considerably, because I know from prosecuting drug cases that it's impossible to get more than 2 miles away from the school. So I mean it's so that covers a lot of Decatur. It'll be significantly less, but the foolishness of playing hopscotch and calling in worked itself out pretty quickly, and having 2 running citywide, I don't remember if Ashley or Tracy said it, response times were phenomenally low. It was amazing how fast the response times were until Dempsey left. And
Yeah,
then,
competition is always
Yeah.
good. I totally understand what he's saying when he said they're gonna be all over the place. But the concern that I want you all to be aware of is that if you don't have areas of responsibilities, first response is going to know where the highest cost for service locations are. And they're gonna try to focus their ambulance things in those areas. In the Huntsville Hospital's system that's coming in, they may not know the area because they're not working as long
No,
as first response is.
I mean,
So I want us to try to figure out a way to all work together and kind of get this on it, and I believe in competition is good. But my overall goal of it, and speaking of this whole matter, is I don't feel, and I don't want to put the dispatchers in the middle.
and I agree with that 100%.
Okay, of telling them where to go
Yeah.
and checking on them, where to go. Because ultimately, I know how many dispatchers she has. I know the problems she has
Well,
with dispatchers.
currently,
And
and correct me if I'm wrong, the dispatch is charged with telling first response when they're supposed to be posted. Is that correct? You all still doing that? They're the ones that tell first response, this truck needs to go post south, what so forth and so on, so they can move a truck to the south. When I say south, I'm talking about Kroger and Target,
Yes.
that area
Yes.
right there. So currently, they're already doing that for first response.
I mean, how do we do it for 2 ambulance services, right? So I'm just trying to.
No, I agree. I mean, it's gonna be and that's what we've talked about before, is that.
Jenny's coming up, so she's the expert on it, so that helps out.
Let me save you guys a little bit of time.
Thank you.
We've already been addressing this a little bit. We haven't addressed it with them yet because we know this is a bridge that we're gonna have to cross, and the board, the ARB and the city council is gonna have to make some decisions that obviously, govern things like the transports and that type of stuff. That's not for us to decide. As far as you're talking about the division and everything, for our AVLs, we're probably gonna need maybe 200 feet difference in order for CAD to determine, where it is, because our CAD system, same thing with the old one as the new one, is it needs this separation to be able to determine who's closest. If it says I can't decide who's closer, then I'm gonna take this action. Which this particular CAD system is gonna pick whichever one has been idle the longest. Not if it's first response or not if it's lifeguard, the truck number. So that's not something that we really wanna get into, so yeah, we'd rather avoid them being parked too closely. We need to run some tests when we're able to be able to give Ashley or whoever an accurate number of here's how far apart that is optimal for us to be able to decide that. As far as posting the trucks, we'll have some conversations with both agencies. Ultimately, I'd kind of like for them to take over their posting responsibilities if it's not going to be the standard, because we're not going to pick and choose holes for each agency. First Response has had a set areas that they post their trucks in, and so we post, and we do the same for lifeguard. We post where they want to post their trucks at. So we'll have to have conversations with Decatur Morgan. They come on board, and then make a decision on that as to whether or not we feel that their supervision should be the ones posting their trucks and doing their situational awareness, or if we'll continue to do that service. That's something that we haven't fully decided on yet, because their supervisors a lot of times are on trucks, and it may be difficult for them to have a situational awareness.
Thank you.
Jeannie, I got Jeannie.
Jenny.
I got a question. Hey, you said a while ago that you thought if you had to pick a number, the optimal number would be 5 trucks for the city of Decatur. Is that ALS trucks?
I'm not going to say no, probably not. There are enough calls that are, alpha level calls and medical transports that, I would say if I had my choice, I'd just rather they all be ALS trucks, because then I'm not dealing with it. I'm sending an ambulance, and whoever's closer, not their abilities. But that's not necessarily optimal for them to perform. I would probably say 4 ALS and have that BLS truck available to take those other calls. That gives them 4 posting opportunities, and then a truck that can move around.
Decatur Morgan, does that sound doable for?
Yes, sir. The plan is to run 4 ALS trucks 24/7, and 2 of the 6 would be BLS trucks, and that would be dependent on call volume, what shifts they would work. Yeah, it may be 12-hour, maybe 24, it may be 16, just depending on the call volume.
Mr.
Chief,
Childers?
I will say from a city standpoint, we did not mandate the number of trucks because the key is the fractal response time. If they think they serve that best with 40 trucks, or if they think they can do it with one, that's up to the service to decide if they're gonna do it, but they just gotta meet their times.
Mr. Childers, do you think that, what Jeannie said about the 4 and 1, is that a good number, is that doable?
Chief,
your organization?
for us, in the past, the number of units is just as she described, is what we've done to ascertain our response times. Let me say this, I'm not defending or a proponent for this, so I'm not trying to defend anything here. Back in the days when there was 2 providers, okay, the way it was set up as, yeah, we did have the jockeying for position. We did have that. That's part of system status management. Also, in addition to that, one week was our non-emergency week. We ran emergency 911s, but we also beefed up our staff on BLS trucks because everything that came from the hospitals, we got. Okay. The next week was 911s were all hours, unless the other provider had a truck closer, and that was their non-emergency week from the hospital, okay? We're dealing with just a little bit different animal right now. We're dealing with an entity that controls the non-emergencies, okay? And I foresee a problem because we utilize the non-emergency paying calls to give the city these great 911 response times. Okay, there's a high indigent care rate for 911 calls of the people not paying or just don't have insurance for whatever the reason or bad luck, they don't pay. So we have to take the money that we receive from the non-emergencies and subsidize the emergencies. Okay? If we're talking about 4 trucks, then we're talking 8 trucks in the whole city. That's too many trucks. But when you start micronizing of who is going to get the non-emergency calls, then this city is going to end up with 1 provider again. Because if we don't have a BLS week, like was back in the days in 2012, you don't have the subsidization from the paying calls to operate in the 911 arena. So that's what I was not a proponent, not defending, just stating that's the way it was in those days.
Okay. As far as what we was talking about a while ago about the cost, you think 4 ALS trucks and 1 BLS truck is what we should have?
In the complete city?
Yeah.
In the complete city, no. I would say 5 ALS trucks and a BLS truck and a BLS truck on call, because if you take that Dothan call, you've used your whole 12-hour crew up going to Dothan and back. So I would say comfortably a total of 5 ALS trucks in the city. You can get by with 4 if you don't send them out of the city, and then your BLS trucks. I would say Ms. Ferris is very, very close to being accurate.
How many ALS trucks do you have and BLS trucks you have today?
We try to run 4.
How many do you have running today?
I'd have to ask Mr. Tyndall today. He's the scheduling person. How many ALS trucks today? Okay.
What about, how many y'all got 3, and how many BLS trucks?
We have 2 ALS and 1 advanced truck.
And BLS?
Running as the BLS.
Okay.
And that's another thing, and a great mention on that is something about advanced that we've been trying to talk to this board about in the past is advanced trucks. They're not recognized in the city of Decatur. They're recognized in the county, I believe, and they're recognized in the state. They're just 1 level below a paramedic truck, and that the city really could use
Thank
advanced trucks.
you.
Answer your question. We have 3 ALS two basic trucks in the city, at this current time. And both basic trucks, I believe are available, one's available and
Okay,
one just got signed up now, that's it, nothing holding.
all right, thank you.
Are
Anything-
you,
Yes,
are you making a comment that the hospital would take all of the non-emergency calls if they take it on board? Is that what you suggested, was thinking?
That's my belief, yes.
And you all feel that you all would not get any because the hospital would take all the non-emergency calls?
Correct.
Two questions on that one. I thought you had contracts with other people outside the hospital, is that true?
Yes, we do have, yes, sir.
And if the hospitals only have 4 ambulances and they're taking all the non-emergency costs, I remember you told us in the meeting before that the non-emergency cost ties up the ambulance for a long period of time. So if the hospital take the non-emergency costs and the ambulances are all tied up, then you all have taken all emergency costs, correct? Would that be reasonable?
The non-paying calls, yes, sir.
All your emergency calls are
No,
non-paying?
no, sir, no,
Oh.
sir. No, sir, thank goodness we do have about a 70%, 62 to 70% pay rate in the 911 arena.
Okay, so then if their calls are all tied up running non-emergency calls, which you mentioned before, that ties you up a whole lot doing the non-emergency calls because they got to sit in the hospital a long time and wait for the hospital staff to release them, and then they got to go somewhere outside of the city, and that keeps that ambulance tied up. I remember you telling me that.
Yes, sir.
thing lots of times. That's been your big problem. So I'm trying to think of that. If that's the case, and they tied up their ambulances on non-emergency calls, then you stuck with left with taking the emergency calls with a 70% pay rate on that one. Would that be higher for you?
No.
If you run a citywide? Okay.
No, sir. No, sir.
Did you just say that you do have contracts with certain entities to run your BLS?
Yes.
You do? Because I could have sworn the CP&C application, you said you didn't have contracts with anybody else. When we
The
asked about
application
that.
says it lists the contracts that, I can't remember the exact verbiage, you probably have it in front of you, but it lists the contracts that would interrupt service with Indicator. And they are contracts with Indicator, so it wouldn't interrupt service.
So if you had 5 trucks on BLS calls, I think it would interrupt service in the city of Decatur.
If you have 5 trucks and you have 3 of them on a dialysis transfer, just speaking, that leaves you 2 trucks, then those contracts could disrupt the services needed in Decatur if they're on the call.
And I agree, the sky could fall today as well. But when the verbiage of the CP&C states, do you have contracts? And we can get the CP&C and look at it in the ordinance. It was geared toward, like, do you have a contract with maybe Boeing that's outside the city limits or something like that? That's the way we viewed it. That's the way we filled it out. The contracts we have within the city keeps our trucks local. And that's what we like to do. We don't like to do the long transports. Because that takes, you're taking a crew out of service for 8, 9, 10 hours on that. And now that we have the mileage rule, you're running up the mileage on the trucks.
The purpose of the ordinance is to,
Thank you.
if there's a contract that would restrict in any way their ability to respond to calls.
That's what I thought, and I think the previous council even asked that in
Yeah.
the.
And I will say this, I know Ashley's anxious to talk some more. At the last one, when first response came in, the council spent time on the how would things develop, how would it work out. The EMS coordinator and 911 worked out the logistics of how the calls were gonna be handled. Today's hearing is just whether this application meets the criteria. If this applicant meets the criteria to progress on to the city council.
Okay.
That's all I was gonna say is as the EMS coordinator, I went through the CP&C. I feel like Decatur Morgan has more than done their share to help us out. They've purchased brand new vehicles. They've purchased brand new equipment, and I support them getting a CP&C for the city of Decatur.
Would they go to the 911 also?
Everything, they'll have to have the same contracts, just like first response does, just like you Decatur PD and Decatur Fire, all of them go through.
Have to have communication equipment. that's
Everything.
compatible
They
and all
actually
that.
they have radios already mounted in their trucks, and each crew member has walkies.
Do we need a motion to move this forward?
Is it legal for ARB? Do you see any problems with this?
It appears to me that they have complied fully with the application process and that they meet the criteria to go forward.
But then we need to get a motion for this applicant, and this application says it meets the requirements of the.
To move to the council?
Move to the council.
I move that the application moves forward. I make a motion that the application move
All
forward.
right, Chief Allen makes a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Randy seconds. Roll call, please.
Chief Allen,
Yes.
Brandy Davis,
Yes.
Lillian Pike,
Aye.
Dee Dee Hayes,
Yes.
Lily, I forgot about you being there. I'm surprised you're still hanging in there after all that.
I'm still watching and listening.
All right, good deal. All right, Chief Engel, can you do our monthly reports, please?
Right now, Samantha is still compiling our monthly numbers. Get those from us. Y'all can hear me.
They can.
Yeah. So currently, Samantha is still running reports for ours for the month of August and further back.
Okay. Jason or David, do y'all have any numbers? All right. Same boat, we,
Sorry? No, when was it sent?
Today.
No, I haven't.
we'll get it at the next ARB meeting. All right, so we don't have any, because of the CAD, we still don't have the monthly, numbers for DFR or first response. We don't have any discipline reviews, any presentations or anything like that. Does anybody have anything further? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Motion Brandy and a second by Chief Allen. We
Stop
adjourned
really
at
fast.
Can we just do this
two
all?
fifty-two.
Can we start this and do it all over again?
You say?
Cannot